My wife used to leave the house late at night, saying she was meeting friends, but I discovered she was sneaking out to meet her brother-in-law. Their secret affair was so well hidden that even our closest family members had no idea until I exposed them. But I need to back up, because cheating doesn't just happen. It builds like water damage in walls, invisible until the whole structure collapses. Sarah and I had been married 8 years. 2 kids, Lucas, who just turned 6, and Emma, 3. Sarah quit her marketing job after Emma was born. Said she wanted to be present for their early years. I supported it, even though it meant longer hours at the firm, more pressure, more exhaustion. I became the sole provider while she became the sole parent, and somewhere in that division, we stopped being partners. Rachel moved back to town after her divorce. Sarah's younger sister, the wild one who'd married too young and blown up her life in California. She needed support, needed family, needed to crash in our guest room just for a few weeks while she got back on her feet. Sarah was thrilled. She'd missed her sister, wanted to help, wanted our kids to know their aunt. The first time I noticed Rachel wasn't the first time I saw her. It was 3 weeks into her stay when I came home at midnight from another brutal day of depositions. Sarah and the kids were asleep. Rachel was on our couch, wine glass in hand, watching a true crime documentary. She'd been crying. Her ex had sent papers about selling their house, and it had hit her that her marriage was over. I should have gone to bed. Instead, I poured myself a scotch and sat down. Just to be nice. Just to be a good brother-in-law. We talked until 3 a.m. that night. About failure. About feeling invisible in your own life. About waking up at 35 and wondering how you became this person you don't recognize. She laughed at my jokes. She listened when I talked about the mind-numbing repetition of contract law. She told me I was a good father, a good man, that Sarah was lucky. I felt seen for the first time in 2 years. It became a pattern. Late-night conversations after everyone was asleep. Nothing inappropriate, I told myself. Just 2 adults finding friendship in the exhaustion of their 30s. Sarah even commented on how well Rachel and I were getting along, how happy she was that her 2 favorite people liked each other. The shift was gradual. Rachel started texting me during the day. Memes at first. Then questions about the apartments she was viewing. Then just random thoughts. This coffee shop place that song you like. Saw a guy in a suit running for the bus and thought of your story. Thanks for listening last night. I started looking forward to those texts more than I looked forward to going home. Sarah noticed nothing because Sarah trusted me completely. 20 years together, 8 years married, 2 kids, a mortgage, a shared life. She trusted me the way you trust gravity to keep you on the ground. It never occurred to her to check my phone or question why I was suddenly taking longer showers or why I'd started using cologne again. Rachel found an apartment after 2 months, but kept finding reasons to come over. To see the kids. To help with dinner. To return something she'd borrowed. Sarah loved it. She'd make extra food, insist Rachel stay, and bask in having her sister close again. We'd sit at the dinner table like some perfect extended family, and I'd catch Rachel's eye across the pasta bowl, and something would twist in my chest. The emotional affair was already consuming me before it turned physical. I was already betraying Sarah every time I deleted a text thread, every time I lied about working late when I was sitting in my car outside Rachel's apartment, talking myself out of going up. Every time I compared them in my mind, and found my wife wanting. Sarah had baby weight she couldn't lose. Rachel did yoga every morning. Sarah talked about preschool applications and grocery sales. Rachel talked about traveling to Morocco and learning to paint. Sarah wore my old college t-shirts to bed. Rachel wore silk robes that fell open when she reached for coffee mugs in our kitchen. These weren't reasons. They were excuses I was cataloging to justify what I already knew I was going to do. The birthday party was supposed to be simple. Just family and a few kids from Lucas's kindergarten. Sarah had been planning it for weeks, the way she planned everything, with Pinterest boards and homemade decorations and a stress level that made everyone around her anxious. Rachel showed up early to help, wearing this sundress that I noticed immediately but pretended not to. The garage freezer moment wasn't spontaneous. The whole day had been building to it. Accidental touches while setting up tables. Standing too close while filling goodie bags. That charged silence when we were alone in the kitchen and Sarah called from upstairs asking if we'd found the candles. When Rachel followed me to the garage, I knew. When she stood behind me as I opened the freezer, I knew. When I turned around and she didn't step back, I knew. We shouldn't, she said, but she was already leaning in. I know, I said, and kissed her anyway. 20 seconds. Maybe 30. The freezer door still open, cold air spilling out, the sound of children laughing in my backyard, my wife's voice singing the birthday song she made up for Lucas when he was a baby. Rachel pulled away first. Her face was flushed. She grabbed the juice boxes and walked out without a word. I stood there for another minute, my heart hammering, already knowing I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The party continued. Sarah never noticed how Rachel avoided looking at me the rest of the afternoon. Never noticed how I kept excusing myself to the bathroom to splash cold water on my face. Never noticed how her sister left early with a migraine that didn't exist. That night, after the kids were in bed and the dishes were done, Sarah curled against me on the couch. Today was perfect, she said. Lucas was so happy. And having Rachel there, it just felt complete, you know? Like family should feel. I held my wife and agreed that yes, it had been perfect, while my phone sat silent in my pocket with 3 unread texts from her sister. The guilt should have stopped me. That first Monday after the party, I woke up determined to end it. Whatever it was. I'd apologize to Rachel, establish boundaries, and recommit to my marriage. I dropped the kids at daycare and school, kissed Sarah goodbye, drove to work, rehearsing what I'd say. Then Rachel texted, "Can't stop thinking about it." 4 words and my resolution crumbled. We met for coffee that afternoon. Just to talk, we said. Just to figure out what happened. The coffee shop was across town, nowhere near my office or her apartment or anywhere Sarah might go. We sat in a back corner booth like criminals planning a heist. "This is insane," Rachel said. "She's my sister. You're her husband. We can't do this." "I know," I agreed. "We won't. It was a moment of weakness. We'll forget it happened." We were lying to each other and ourselves. We both knew we were already too far gone. The physical affair started 2 weeks later. Rachel texted that her shower was broken, could she come by to use ours? Sarah was at Emma's toddler gymnastics class. I should have said no. Should have told her to use the gym, call a plumber, and figure it out. Instead, I said Sarah wouldn't be back for 2 hours. I'm not going to describe what happened. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I became a person I didn't recognize, someone capable of betraying the woman who'd given me children, who'd sacrificed her career for our family, who still left me love notes in my lunch bag. The logistics of an affair are pathetically mundane. Deleted texts. Fake work emergencies. Cash withdrawals, so there wouldn't be credit card records. I became an expert at deception, at living 2 lives. I'd coach Lucas's soccer practice, then drive to Rachel's apartment. I'd read Emma her bedtime stories, then text Rachel from my home office while Sarah watched TV downstairs. Sarah made it easy by trusting me. She never questioned the new gym membership I never used. Never wondered why I was suddenly taking client calls at odd hours. Never noticed that I'd stopped initiating intimacy because the guilt made me feel sick. Rachel and I convinced ourselves we were in love. That this was bigger than both of us. That we hadn't meant for it to happen, but couldn't fight it. We made plans. She'd move to another city first, get established. I'd ask Sarah for a divorce, make it seem unrelated. We'd wait a respectable amount of time before going public. We'd minimize the damage. We were delusional. The close calls started piling up. Sarah found a receipt for a restaurant I'd never mentioned. Lucas asked why Aunt Rachel's car was at the park when she said she was sick. Emma was repeating something Rachel had said during a time she supposedly wasn't with us. Each lie required 3 more lies to support it. I was exhausted from keeping the story straight, from being 2 different people, from the constant adrenaline of almost being caught. Sarah started to notice something was wrong, but she blamed herself. She asked if she'd been too focused on the kids, if I felt neglected. She started making more effort. Date nights. Lingerie I hadn't seen since before Lucas was born. Texts during the day just to say she loved me. Every gesture of love from her was a knife twist. But not enough to make me stop. The night it all came apart started like any other. Sarah had taken the kids to her mother's for the weekend. A cousin sleepover thing they did once a month. I told her I had to work, a big case, and couldn't get away. She kissed me goodbye and said she'd miss me. 20 minutes after she left, I was at Rachel's. We were reckless by then. Comfortable in our deception. We ordered takeout under my name. We watched a movie on her couch like a real couple. We fell asleep in her bed without setting an alarm. I woke up to pounding on the door at 2 a.m. Sarah's mother had called her. Emma was running a fever, crying for daddy. Sarah had driven home to get me, found the house empty, and my car gone. She'd called my office. My phone, which I'd left on silent. Then, in desperation, she called Rachel. Maybe her sister would know where I was. Rachel didn't answer. So Sarah drove to her apartment to check if she was okay. She saw my car in the parking lot. The pounding got louder. Rachel was frozen beside me. I pulled on my clothes, my mind racing through lies that might explain this. Car trouble. Too tired to drive. A work emergency near Rachel's place. But when I opened the door and saw Sarah's face, I knew no lie would work. She wasn't crying. That came later. In that moment, she was still, staring past me at her sister wrapped in a bedsheet. "How long?" was all she said. Neither of us answered. "How long?" 3 months, Rachel whispered. Sarah nodded once. Then she looked at me. Looked at me. Like she was seeing me for the first time. "Emma's sick," she said. "Your daughter is sick and crying for you, and you're here." She turned and walked away. No screaming. No confrontation. Just footsteps down the hallway and the sound of the stairwell door closing. I drove home at 3 a.m. to an empty house. Sarah had already been there. Her wedding ring was on the kitchen counter next to a note, "Don't contact me. Don't contact the kids." The lawyer will call on Monday. I sat at my kitchen table as the sun came up, looking at the remnants of the life I'd destroyed. Emma's drawings are on the refrigerator. Lucas's soccer trophy on the mantel. Sarah's coffee mug was in the sink, lipstick still on the rim. My phone buzzed. Rachel, what do we do now? I didn't answer. Because I finally understood that there was no we. There had never been. Just two selfish people destroying a family for something that was never love, just the thrill of doing something forbidden. Them. Sarah filed for divorce the following Monday. No mediation. No counseling. No second chances. She hired the kind of lawyer that other lawyers fear, and I knew I'd lost everything before the process even started. The news spread through our social circle like wildfire. Sarah didn't have to say much. The basic facts were damning enough: husband of 8 years carrying on an affair with wife's sister. The judgment was swift and universal. Friends chose sides, and it wasn't mine. My mother called me sobbing. Her sister? Her sister? How could you do this to those babies? Because that's what haunts me most. Not losing Sarah, though that guilt will follow me to my grave. It's what I did to Lucas and Emma. Lucas stopped talking to me first. 6 years old, and he understood enough. Daddy mommy. Daddy made mommy cry. Daddy chose Aunt Rachel over our family. He wouldn't take my calls. When I showed up for my court-mandated visitation, he'd scream until Sarah's lawyer successfully petitioned to make my visits supervised. Emma was too young to understand why Daddy didn't live at home anymore, why Mommy cried when she thought no one was looking, and why Aunt Rachel's name made everyone go quiet. She just knew that everything had changed, and it was somehow connected to me. Rachel and I lasted exactly 3 weeks after discovery. The fantasy couldn't survive the reality of what we'd done. Every conversation was tainted by guilt. Every moment together was a reminder of what it cost. She looked at me and saw the reason she'd lost her sister. I looked at her and saw the proof of what kind of man I was. She moved away without saying goodbye. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that she'd gone to Portland, was starting over, and had told people she was an only child. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. Sarah got the house, primary custody, and enough alimony and child support to ensure she'd never need to work unless she wanted to. I got every other weekend visitation. Eventually, after 6 months of supervised visits proved I wasn't a physical danger to my children. Just an emotional one. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment 40 minutes away. Close enough to see the kids, far enough that I wouldn't run into Sarah at the grocery store. The walls are beige. The furniture is from IKEA. Nothing on the walls because what would I put there? Family photos? My career survived, barely. The senior partners at the firm made it clear I was an embarrassment, but firing me would have been too much hassle. So I work 60, 70 hours a week. It's not ambition anymore. It's just better than going home to the apartment. Lucas is 8 now. He's in therapy to deal with what the counselor calls trust issues stemming from paternal betrayal. He sees me every other weekend, but he doesn't see me. He's polite. Distant. Like I'm an obligation he has to endure. He doesn't tell me about school or his friends or the girl he has a crush on. Sarah hears all that. I get carefully neutral updates about soccer practice. Emma is 5. She still runs to hug me when I pick her up, but she cries when it's time to go back to mommy. Last month, she asked if I had left because she was bad. I told her no, Daddy made bad choices, and she said, then why can't you just make good choices and come home? How do you explain to a 5-year-old that some mistakes can't be undone? Sarah is dating someone. A widower from her grief support group, though I don't think she was supposed to be grieving a marriage there. Mark. Good guy, from what I've forced myself to research. Owns a construction company. Has a daughter of Emma's age. He shows up to Lucas's soccer games now. Sits with Sarah. Makes her laugh. Lucas calls him Mr. Mark, but I can see where this is heading. Another year or 2 and it'll just be Mark. Then maybe something else. I saw them all at a school play last month. Lucas had 3 lines as tree number 2. Sarah had saved seats for her and Mark. Emma sat on Mark's lap. They looked like a family. A real family. The kind I used to have. Rachel tried to contact me once, 6 months after everything exploded. A long email about forgiveness and moving forward and how we couldn't let one mistake define us. I deleted it without responding. It wasn't one mistake. It was thousands of small choices that led to one catastrophic betrayal. The loneliness is absolute. I work, I go to the gym, I see my kids every other weekend, and I sit in my apartment. I don't date. How could I? What would I tell someone? I destroyed my family for an affair with my sister-in-law? Friends from before either sided with Sarah or distanced themselves from the whole mess. New friendships feel impossible when the foundational story of who you are is that you're the man who did that terrible thing. My therapist says I need to forgive myself. Holding on to the guilt isn't serving anyone. But she's wrong. The guilt is the only honest thing about me now. It's what I deserve to carry. Last week was Lucas's birthday. 9 years old. Sarah had a party at one of those trampoline places. She invited me for Lucas's sake. I stood at the edge of the party like a ghost, watching my son celebrate with his friends, his mother, and his mother's boyfriend. When it came time for cake, Lucas wouldn't look at me as everyone sang. The cake was store-bought this year. Sarah doesn't make elaborate cakes anymore. She doesn't have time, working part-time now and raising 2 kids essentially alone. Another thing I stole from her. Those small joys she used to take in making everything special. After the party, I sat in my car in the parking lot and watched them leave. Mark carried Emma on his shoulders. Lucas held Sarah's hand. They were laughing about something I couldn't hear. That's my family. Living their life. Without me. I think about that moment in the garage every day. 20 seconds that destroyed everything. I had a wife who loved me, children who trusted me, a life that was good and real and mine. And I let it all away for something never more than a selfish fantasy dressed up as passion. Sarah remarried last spring. Mark. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends. Lucas was the ring bearer. Emma was the flower girl. I saw the pictures on Facebook through a mutual friend who forgot to unfriend me. Sarah looked radiant. Happy. Lighter somehow, like she'd finally set down something heavy she'd been carrying. Lucas calls Mark Dad now. Not all the time, but I've heard it. When he doesn't know I'm listening. When he forgets to be careful. Each time is a knife, but it's a knife I earned. Emma asked me last week why she has 2 daddies when most kids have one. I told her she was extra lucky. She thought about it and said, "But you're the daddy who lives alone, right?" Right. I am the daddy who lives alone. The daddy who destroyed his family for an affair that meant nothing. The daddy who taught his children that love isn't always enough and that trust, once broken, never fully heals. The daddy who turned their mother into a cautionary tale about choosing your partner carefully and their aunt into a ghost they'll never know. There's no redemption arc here. No lesson that makes it worthwhile. No silver lining. Just the brutal truth that some betrayals are so deep they change the shape of every life they touch. I'm 38 years old. If I live to be 80, that's 42 more years of this. 42 years of being the man who did that unforgivable thing. 42 years of watching my children call another man dad. 42 years of knowing that I had everything and chose to destroy it. Sarah was right to leave immediately. Right to never look back. Right to protect our children from the man I revealed myself to be. She gave me 8 years of trust, and I repaid her with the kind of betrayal that reshapes a person's ability to ever fully trust again. Sometimes Emma asks if I'm sad. I tell her no, Daddy's just tired. But she knows. Kids always know. She pats my hand with her little fingers and says, "It's okay, Daddy. Maybe tomorrow will be better." But tomorrow is never better. Tomorrow is just another day of living with what I've done. Another day of being the cautionary tale, the reason someone somewhere says, "At least my ex didn't cheat with my sister." I destroyed a good woman's life. I traumatized my children. I betrayed every promise I ever made. For what? For momentary excitement. For the thrill of being wanted. For the selfish delusion that I deserved more than the beautiful life I already had. If you're reading this and you're standing at the edge of an affair, know this: the guilt doesn't fade. The consequences don't soften. The people you don't forget. You don't get to be the hero of your story anymore. You become the villain in theirs, forever. My daughter drew a picture of our family last week at school. 2 houses. In one house, Mommy, Mark, Lucas, Emma, and the dog they got last Christmas. In the other house, just a stick figure standing alone. That's what an affair costs. Everything that matters, for something that never did.